Hey, it's Colin Smith here from photoshopCAFE, and today we're going to look at the new Google Pixel 8 Pro. We're going to focus on the camera and the photographic features. We're going to see how it's improved over the Pixel 7 Pro, but we're also going to compare it to the new iPhone 15 Pro Max. The best camera you have is the one you have with you, and so my response to that is, why not have a better one? Yes, sometimes better can be better than best. And full disclosure, I'm a member of Team Pixel and Google did send me this phone for free. So the first thing to note is the camera. We have 3 lenses and they've now upgraded the sensors to larger sensors. We have the wide, which is a 50 megapixel camera. We have the ultra wide, which is a 48 megapixel camera. And then we have the 5x telephoto, which is also a 48 megapixel camera. If we compare this to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, this also has 3 cameras, also at the same zoom, but the main camera is a 48 megapixel when used in Pro RAW. The ultra wide is a 12 megapixel camera as well as a 12 megapixel 5x zoom. Anything else like a 2x or anything like that is actually a digital zoom. When you do a digital zoom, you essentially increase the image and then crop it to fit that sensor size. No different than cropping inside of Photoshop. So this is why the 48 megapixel ultra wide and telephoto does give us an advantage over the one in here, because the larger the image that's captured, the more you're able to zoom without losing quality. So both of these are using a periscope system for the telephoto lens. The periscope allows them to use a series of mirrors so you can get more physical distance between the sensor and the lens, and thus getting a true optical focal length. So let's start by looking at some of the images from the Pixel 7 Pro and the Pixel 8 Pro. So let's look at some JPEGs. So here's the ultra wide. So on the left we have the Pixel 7, on the right we have the Pixel 8. Now the first thing you'll notice when we zoom all the way in is this is higher resolution. We can see there's a big difference here in the color. Pixel 8 is on the left, and you can see the JPEG looks kind of crispy over these areas here on this 7. And then when I'm looking at the 8, it definitely doesn't look as crispy. It looks a lot smoother and more natural. The colors are also closer to accurate at that time. And here we are on the 5X. I can definitely see the image on the 8 looks a lot cleaner than the one on the 7. On the left we have the 8 Pro, and on the right we have the 7 Pro. I can definitely see the colors are more accurate. Let's look at some RAWs. So if we look at the 8 Pro, initially it looks a little bit softer than the 7 Pro, but remember this is shooting RAW, so it needs processing. But if you look, there's so much more detail here in the shadows. So this has definitely had a big jump in dynamic range. The dynamic range on this is really good, and here we are zoomed in. So in essence, when we look, these images are good on both. I've shot some great photos on the 7 Pro, but the 8 gives us the biggest sensor, which means it works better in low light. As you can see, we get cleaner, more detail. But also when we go into the RAW, we get more dynamic range. I'm talking a significant amount more dynamic range. So now that we've ascertained that the Pixel 8 Pro has a better camera system than the 7 Pro, let's have a look at it in comparison with the 15 Pro Max. Only the Pro Max has the 5x zoom. The Pro has a 3x zoom, but it doesn't have the periscope camera. So let's have a look at comparison between JPEG photos. This is the 15 Pro Max with the ultra wide. And on the right, we have the Pixel 8 Pro. Now, obviously, there's more resolution because this is a 48 megapixel camera versus the 12 megapixel camera on the iPhone. Definitely a big difference here in color. Let's look at the detail on that boat there versus the detail on the iPhone. Let's pixel peep. Generally, you're never going to look at over 100%, but let's pixel peep anyway. So both of these are very high. So you can see, yeah, there's more detail showing in here. So we can go up to 100% there on the iPhone, and we can go to 100% here on the Pixel. So this is the main camera on the iPhone, which is the 48 megapixels. And we can see, as far as the JPEG, I think it looks a little bit sharp and crispy on the Pixel. The colors are definitely more natural though. And if we look at this area here, the gradients are quite smooth.
whereas there's a little bit more banding here on the iPhone.
Let's have a look at the RAW files.
All right, if we look at the RAW file, the colors are better on the Pixel, but it definitely looks very soft. But let's see what happens if we adjust both of these. And here's both of these images with some adjustments applied. And because this is the main camera on the iPhone, we are able to look at it at the same magnification. On the left here we have the Pixel, on the right we have the iPhone. It's lower resolution, so of course we can't zoom in as much. But if we look at the colors here, and look at the greens compared to the greens on there, the shadow areas are definitely more closed up on the iPhone. So these are RAW files, so they both need some adjustment. Let's do some quick adjustments. And with a little bit of adjustment, we've opened up some of the shadows here on the left on the iPhone.
Now, a JPEG has adjustments applied in camera. In camera, it goes for the maximum amount of contrast, it sharpens it, it goes for the best looking image directly in camera. The purpose of a RAW file is kind of like a log in video. The RAW file is not trying to get the best picture on your screen. What it's trying to do is capture the most amount of information onto that sensor. But essentially what it does is it creates with the maximum amount of dynamic range and applies a minimal amount of processing. Because the goal here is for you to bring those into Lightroom Mobile, or even the on-phone apps there. That's where you're gonna apply your sharpening, your cropping, and that's where you're gonna apply a lot of your adjustments. So one of the things I'm seeing on the Pixel is there's definitely more dynamic range, a lot more dynamic range. You can see the details in the shadows. The only weakness I'm really seeing with the pictures right now in the Pixel 8 is I feel like the RAW images are a little soft. The JPEGs are nice and sharp. Yes, I can process them in post, but I'm hoping that they'll do an update soon, which maybe will give them a better default sharpening and maybe a little bit more default contrast applied.
Let's look at some of the camera settings. Click the little button down here, and this brings out a shelf with pro settings in there, where we can adjust things like white balance. This does it in camera, so useful. Another one is being able to adjust the shadows separately than the brightness. And then we can go into focus. And this is amazing, where we can literally change the focus plane of the photograph. And then we can even change the ISO. And if we want, we can also change the shutter speed. Here's an example of a fast shutter speed and a slow shutter speed. Obviously, I needed a neutral density filter.
I do want to talk about the Pixel 8 Pro here just for a second. Some of the post-processing in here is really revolutionary. So this is the first mobile phone to have onboard AI image generation. And that AI image generation enables it to do some really interesting things when we're editing. And one of them is the magic eraser, where you just make a circle around things and they disappear. Now it actually generates pixels and images to fill those gaps to make it look more realistic. So if you shoot multiple photos of a group photo, in every photo, someone's blinking, someone's not smiling. Usually you get the best expression from each person in a different photo. Now you can actually go in and you can select the expression you want from each person inside that photo and create a really good group photo. But one of the big areas where the iPhone is falling down and has for the last few years is battery. In this video, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. If you're interested, let me know in the comments and I can do more specific battery tests. So I got up about 5 hours ago and I've been using these phones today. Right now, we've got 44% of battery on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I feel like there's some kind of a bug. I know they did an update recently to help with the overheating, but it's still overheating a lot. And I think that's what's causing the battery drain. I'm sure they'll come with an update for it soon. But right now, the battery on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is just absolutely terrible. In contrast, when we look at the Pixel 8 Pro, right now I have 91% of battery. Admittedly, I made a phone call on the iPhone, and that was about a 25-minute phone call, so that is the difference in usage between the two. But as you can tell, there's a big difference. And people are like, what about phone calls? These are not phones anymore. These are pocket computers, and phone calls are one of the things you can do on it, but most people don't. Most people just text now to spare themselves the agony of a phone call. And I'm going to be doing more in-depth tutorials on different aspects of these phones on my other channel. Yes, I've started a second YouTube channel for my tech stuff so we can focus on Photoshop, Lightroom, and photography here. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting and useful. Drop a comment underneath and let me know your thoughts on both of these phones and also what you'd like to see on my tech channel. If you're new, welcome to the cafe. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. You won't miss any of my tutorials. And until next time, I'll see you at the cafe.